This guy was known as the Human Monster, and he escaped justice in 1919 after killing a few people. I guess he was lucky, because if it's your desire to take out someone and then get away with it, what better situation can you face? Regardless, he was dubbed the Human Monster, and today I wanted to narrate the details concerning the case of William Kanaki. Now, they started out by saying that he moved to America from Germany in 1884, first settling in Mountain Home, Idaho, where he first started out by running a shoe shop. He married Regina Cobb in 1896. He also bought a herd of sheep, tending to them near Rocky Bar, which by now, according to the wikis, is a ghost town in Elmore County, Idaho. And by the picture you can clearly tell it looks like a ghost town, alright? But he worked there with his wife at a farm. Eventually the herd grew at a mysteriously rapid rate, and the couple had to hire farmhands, several of whom later disappeared under suspicious circumstances. Yes, these farmhands were actually murdered by this guy. Absolutely tragic, so they went straight into the details of the murders themselves. That's as far as they went with the background check on this guy. The first one they have documented described the following. In 1895, Regina's nephew, known only by his surname Kunnecke, arrived from Germany, and William quickly employed him as a farmhand. He remained there for a year and a half, but then suddenly disappeared in the area of Trinity Mountains Lakes. William then began searching for another herder in Rocky Bar, explaining that his previous one had returned to Germany. This claim was investigated by the German consulate in Portland, Oregon, which discovered that Kunnecke's parents hadn't heard from him for a while. They also informed the consulate that William had owed their son $800, for which he had given a note for the promised amount. The German consulate demanded that he paid the required sum, but William claimed that he had already done so. In turn, he asked that arrangements be made for an indemnity bond as a guarantee that his money can be refunded. Since a bond could not be taken out at the time, it was delivered at a later date to Mountain Home. People were wondering about his reason to leave suddenly, and since the suspicion that William had killed Kunnecke was so strong, county commissioners offered a $1,000 reward for any information about his whereabouts. William was last seen riding a saddle horse, claiming to be en route to Rocky Bar. It's believed that he instead went to Trinity Mountain to get rid of any evidence there. A burned down shack belonging to him was later discovered in the mountains, and people suspected that Kunnecke's body was discarded and subsequently burned to ashes in a deliberate started fire, so nobody could find him. In the spring of 1900, the body of another sheep owner named Litzman was found on a trail between his farm and that of William. According to his surviving brother, Litzman was known to carry a lot of money on his person, and as he had no faith in banks, but strangely not a single dollar was found on his body. William had already left town, ostensibly to skip a court-appointed $500 bail bond about violating a law about herding diseased sheep. His wife had remained in town only so she could close up the business, withdraw $80 from the Rice & Co. Bank, which belonged to her nephew, and later joined her husband. It later transpired that William had poisoned him, stolen the money, and simply left the body lying on the trail. After returning to Germany for a short time, William returned to America, passing through Spearfish, South Dakota, before setting on a farm in Cottonwoods Creeks. Shortly after his arrival, he ran into trouble with the law, having been accused, tried and convicted of stealing 300 sheep from James Cox, for which he had to pay $1,350 and spend a month in jail. He hired a young man named Charles Roberker as a farmhand. Charles later disappeared, prompting his brother William, a different one who resided in Iowa, to come asking about him. Now, Kanaki explained to young William that his brother had quit and that he didn't know what happened to him after that. William was offered a job at the ranch, where he met with Andrew Demmler, who had already worked there for a few months, with Roberker quickly learning that the fellow ranch hand never went anywhere without his trusty sheep-lined coat and dog. For a few weeks everything was going fine. One day, however, Andrew vanished without a trace. When questioned, Kanaki claimed that Demmler had quit and that he had sold all of his sheep to him. He then asked Roberker to take over the job, to which he agreed. They then rode out to the sheep camp, where they found Demmler's dog, sniffing at a pool of frozen blood to the side of a sled. William tried to explain that he had killed a sick animal over there and had discarded it. This did not convince Roberger, who opened the door to the little shack and found Demmler's prized coat. The young William inquired about why it was there, receiving a threatening answer from his employer, who thought that he had asked so many damn fool questions. Panicked, Roberger tried to quit right then and there, but was warned by Kanaki that he'd have to stay at least until a new farmhand could be hired. Realizing that he had killed Demmler and that the same fate probably awaited him as well, he reluctantly agreed to stay. Kanaki then left, taking both horses with him, leaving the frightened William herding the sheep. While gathering the sheep, Roberger spotted a washout that would lead him out to the sheep camp, waiting until nightfall before escaping. He ran east toward Fort Pierre so he could catch the nearest train back to Iowa. At some point during his night-long trot through the snow, he heard hoofbeats on the trail behind him and quickly hid in a ditch to avoid the rider. After the rider had gone away, he found his way to Fort Pierre, hopped on a train, and once arrived in Iowa, he wrote a letter to Sheriff Feeney about his suspicions towards Kanaki. Initially skeptical of the claims, Feeney still decided to investigate the matter, as he knew of Kanaki's previous criminal behavior, coupled with the fact that Demmler hadn't been seen since February. He rode out to the farm and questioned the sheep herder, who claimed that Andrew had quit and gone off to New York through Pierre. Unconvinced by Kanaki's story, Feeney visited him multiple times over the following 3 days, searching for any evidence of murder, only to come up empty-handed. Kanaki did not realize who the man was at first until a freight hauler asked him what the sheriff was doing at his farm. This statement frightened William, who immediately rushed out to the creek and dug out Demmler's frozen body, intending to hide it in a secluded location and subsequently burn it. Unbeknownst to him, however, Sheriff Feeney, along with a posse of 6 other men and 2 teenagers, had gone to his farm again in search of any clues. On the way to the farm, they noticed wagon tracks heading toward Plum Creek. The odd thing was that there were 3 tracks, while there should have been 2, with one of them leading off toward a nearby creek bottom. Feeney and one of his men, Henry Schott, followed the tracks and soon discovered a small clump of hair and freshly dug dirt. They searched for a body, but again nothing turned up. Despite this, Feeney was certain somebody had been buried here, and the posse then went towards the wagon tracks. Only 3 miles later they ran into none other than William Kanaki himself. Feeney confronted him about working so early, with Kanaki claiming he'd been after firewood. The now fed up Feeney asked him to get off the wagon so it could be searched, to which Kanaki agreed. He was found to be in possession of only a broken pocket knife and an axe. Feeney and Schott got Kanaki on a horse and then rode out with him to Hayes, while the others continued searching for a body. Not long after, the posse found 2 body pieces belonging to Demmler 50 miles down in a washout at Plum Creek. His frozen body had been hacked to pieces, but that was not the cause of death. It was apparent that Andrew had been shot in the head with a pistol before being fired at again at the mount and head with a shotgun, leaving powder burns on the clothing. In the meantime, Kanaki had already spoken to a lawyer of the Horner and Stewart law firm. Feeney then marched him off to the Hughes County Jail. And this is where ultimately he managed to escape justice, and this man got away with all of the details you just heard. They ended this article with the following details. William Kanaki spent almost a year in prison awaiting trial, as his lawyers had secured him a January term, following an unsuccessful bid for a change of venue, citing a local prejudice against their client. During this time he tried to escape on 3 separate occasions, and on one of them he was found with a saw made from an old case knife, a stove poker, a large bottle and a stick. After being punished for this, he proceeded to go on a 6-day-long hunger strike, tried to kill himself by eating a bar of soap, and finally another suicide attempt by starting a fight with 2 other Native American prisoners, during which he was beaten up before the jailer could interfere. In the meantime, there was a report of a human skeleton found at his old farm, which later turned out to be animal bones. Eventually, William confessed to Demmler's murder, although he claimed it was in self-defense. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and sent off to the South Dakota State Penitentiary. On September 3, 1919, while watering the prison law, He managed to slip through the gate unnoticed when it was opened so some work teams could go through. His absence was quickly noticed by Warden Redfield, who pursued Kanaki with an automobile, but by then the convict had already put some distance between himself and the authorities. Detective agencies throughout the entire USA were notified about him, but although he spoke with a distinct German accent, he traveled only at night, successfully evading police. One report claimed that a man matching his description was seen at El Paso, Texas, before making his way over the border into Mexico, but this has not been conclusively proven, and his ultimate fate remains unknown. And that was the end of the article. When I stumbled upon this case, the only thing I thought to myself was, these are the cases that are very, very unique, where you're dealing with pretty much a serial killer that actually got away with it. Now, of course, this was over 100 years ago, so prisons were a little different than they are now. Less secure and stuff like that, because the way he escaped just sounds ridiculous if you think about it. Some workers came into the prison, so they had to open the gate and he was able to quickly sneak out of the prison. I mean, talk about luck there. That's what every prisoner would love to be able to do, but many fail or are unable to do so to begin with. So I guess for a human monster, he sure was a lucky human monster, but by now, I'm sure he's already gone off this earth. Although the mystery still remains where. Where did he go for his final years of his life? And if he did survive, did he perhaps take out other people as well that are right now unsolved murders for the rest of eternity? You'll never know for sure. Anyways, with that being said, dear viewer, have sweet dreams.